Thank you for joining us at the Fast Mode here at the Fast Mode Studios. We are excited to have you on today's session.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Reporting from Campbell, California right now this morning, but in a couple of hours I'll be jumping on a plane to head to Barcelona.
Wow. So what are your plans for MWC 2021?
Hey, listen, we figured we would be back in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I've never been, but of course, many of our team members have been to MWC Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea for the company
Mm-hmm.
actually was formed at Barcelona. As a result, we named the company Salona. So
Wow.
we have to be there every year to kind of check in with the rest of the ecosystem, get to know more people. We're a 2-year-old startup here in the Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And as we grow our product line and customer base, our ecosystem also has a great role in that.
Mm-hmm.
And what is a better place to meet the rest of the people in this industry
Yep.
than at MWC? So felt like we have to be there and really looking forward to the next week.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds great. So let's go into some of the topics that we wanted to discuss today. And of course, when it's Salona, we have to talk about your biggest thing, which is the CBRS, so Citizen Broadband Radio Service. So can you explain to us what is CBRS and some of the use cases for CBRS?
Yeah, absolutely. CBRS is essentially the name for private spectrum option for cellular wireless, LTE 5G wireless here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there are international versions of that. UK has different options, Germany, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So our solutions started supporting the CBRS spectrum, private spectrum options here in the US, and we are expanding that support starting with UK and other regions in the EU starting next year. So what that allows an enterprise to do or a service provider to do is without paying for licensing fees to get access to LTE 5G spectrum, now you can just deploy the infrastructure, and this infrastructure designated for enterprise use can get access to the spectrum without those licensing fees, but still through a centralized coordination, right? You know what spectrum everybody is using, which enterprises have access to how much spectrum, but they can use it in their own way. They can support their local applications. They can take advantage of the sophistication of cellular wireless, LTE 5G wireless within this spectrum and kind of start solving some new challenges. I think it has a lot to do with the desire to accelerate 5G innovation. Right? Because if you give commercial enterprises a vehicle to innovate, new initiatives, new application options, new way of doing business, it will be a skyrocket. So I think it will have great implications in how fast the 5G ecosystem and the 5G application ecosystem grows in the upcoming years.
Okay. So I guess, so we have heard a lot about the 5G use cases, the eMBB, URLLC, and MMTC, and also FWA, of course. So I gather from what you said, from what you explained, that you are now bringing in more partners, more drivers, driving entities, enterprises to take part in this instead of just waiting for the innovations to come from service providers and operators. So we are basically accelerating the translation of these new network capabilities into innovative use cases. Yeah.
Correct. And some of I think the environments, we get this question a lot where, hey, look, enterprise environments are already full of a variety of different connectivity technologies. Why do you need an additional option like 5G? And what we usually see is there are 3 sources of infrastructure decisions that result in, okay, I probably need private 5G in my environment. One is the lack of flexibility in wired infrastructure for connecting critical devices and applications.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine a manufacturing site with tons of robotics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Robotics, you want to make sure that they all work, they're connected, they can be remote controlled,
Mm-hmm.
and they can share the telemetry they need.
Yep.
As a result, you wire them up.
Yep.
Right? You put them on the wired network, you want predictability. While 5G, after a long period of time where we worked on Wi-Fi based technologies where we could not guarantee a specific service level, a specific SLA, 5G actually says, I can act like wires. I can give you a specific SLA when running on wireless.
Yes.
So now that opens the door for moving things that traditionally stayed on wires over to 5G. And of course, the more you get rid of wires, the more dollars you have to invest in this new technology. And the next thing we see is a lot of the enterprises value LTE 5G cellular wireless already, right? They believe that it's a reliable technology. They can work with a public mobile network operator, pay them monthly fees per device, and get access to it. Now what they're realizing is maybe a portion of the devices, portion of my environment, I don't have to pay monthly fees to the mobile operators. I will still use them for some of my infrastructure, but perhaps for localized applications that require low latency and real-time response from the network, maybe I should just build my own private 5G network and eliminate some of those monthly device costs. And I think the third option has been, I use Wi-Fi, let me do some unnatural things with Wi-Fi, let me put a lot more access points in my environment, indoors or outdoors. Let me try to fit Wi-Fi where it's not ever been designed to fit before. So I think those projects, also known as industrial Wi-Fi, will start moving towards private 5G. But those are the three practical sources of, I think, network infrastructure innovation that's awaiting enterprises as they take a closer look at private 5G.
Yeah, interesting use cases. So I think we touched slightly on this. So how is CBRS going to enhance the existing offerings of telecom and cable operators?
I think it makes them much more competitive within the enterprise segment. They already know the sophistication that comes with LTE 5G cellular wireless. They already know how to design those networks, how to support those devices, how to offer security for such an infrastructure. So they already have a head start in enabling this technology in the enterprise. What they always run into a challenge of is readily accessible spectrum that can be used in any environment, whether it's CBRS in the United States, whether it's something else in UK and Germany. Now they have an option to say, Mr. Customer, I can reduce the adoption cost for you, but my experience in delivering 5G technologies could be really useful in your factories, in your hospitals, and other environments. So I think they have a head start. They just have to switch their mind a little bit and say, okay, I want to be enterprise friendly now and take advantage of these new spectrum options. And ultimately, from a business sense, I think they will recognize much higher margins as well as they go after private 5G.
Okay. So now for the enterprises, so how will enterprises be leveraging CBRS for their own private LTE and 5G network? I think you have discussed and shared even some very interesting use cases. So what are the other services can they enable using CBRS?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I usually look at enterprises that have 24/7 operation and rely on critical connectivity. So let's think about a hospital. It always has to be online, always serving patients, doctors and nurses, thank God, working 24/7 around the clock. And they need reliable connectivity on hospital-provided devices, smartphones, tablets, IoT infrastructure, and those devices need to have really high reliable connectivity on a clean spectrum. Go to a manufacturing site. Manufacturing sites usually use 2 to 3 shifts they're also 24/7. You don't want to stop a manufacturing line because that it has grave implications if you do on the overall margin for the business. So critical infrastructure can run on wireless, clean spectrum, highly predictable connectivity. Go to warehousing and logistics. Just in the United States in the last 2 years, e-commerce business have exploded. And globally, we're seeing the same trend. And the more e-commerce, the more we rely on e-commerce, house delivery and delivery to your business, then the supply chain gets the pressure. In order to innovate in the supply chain, to relieve that pressure, you rely on digital technologies, which require more predictable connectivity. And of course, the supply chain is a 24/7 machine as well. So if you look at a business that has to run 24/7, 365, and you look at critical applications that can accelerate the way you do business, and that's where private 5G fits fantastically well.
Wow, wow, interesting. So we looked at all the key players that can take advantage of CBRS. Now, what we want to talk about is their readiness in terms of, IT infrastructure and software capabilities required. Do they have what it takes for them to enable the rollout and management and monitoring of cellular wireless services provided on CBRS? And then further to that, what are the advancements available today to support the dynamic provisioning of network resources across various applications and types of users?
Yeah, absolutely. We are actually learning from the standard bodies, right? Our job as Celona is to offer a standards-based solution that can be deployed globally, but can be managed by any enterprise or the managed service providers that they work with. Now, in order to do that, we need to get inspiration from the existing standards like 3GPP. It is well defined in that standard that 5G network slicing can be applied to multiple enterprises, each enterprise getting their own slice from a macro public network, public cellular network. Well, we took that and said, that's a really good concept. Why don't we translate that to Celona micro slicing? Inspired by network slicing, but we call it micro slicing, where it's the same enterprise, it's the same building. Apple devices get a slice, video cameras get another slice, push-to-talk application get another slice. They're all served by the same radio infrastructure in a building. Another inspiration we're getting right now is Open RAN. Right? Open RAN allows much faster deployment of private cellular infrastructure. It allows for much lower cost, much more flexible deployment and management option. And we said, well, let's take those concepts and let's translate them to enterprises, calling it Enterprise O-RAN. And we made sure that that technology can fit in within the existing infrastructure. So O-RAN and in general, cellular wireless technologies require dedicated cabling within a building to offer the cellular service, to offer that cellular coverage. We said that can be a friction point. A hospital, it's already moving at light speed, and you want to deploy another cabling infrastructure within that building. That might take months. Why don't we use the existing network, existing enterprise network infrastructure, and deploy our radio access network, our Open RAN technology within that environment? So it's always a good idea to start with the standard, what 3GPP has put on the plate, and then translate it to the enterprise environment. And I think that's what we've been doing to make sure that enterprise applications, enterprise buying cycles, their purchasing model, their deployment requirements are met while we still stay connected to what the standard bodies have been saying for the last many years.
Wow, interesting. So this concept points to an environment where we have the macro network, and within that network we have micro networks, which are capable of offering much advanced features that are more tuned to the exact requirements of the users. Very interesting.
You got it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so great. So thank you, Oza, joining us and explaining some very interesting topics. I think micro slicing, there's a relatively new term. There's a lot of talk about network slicing, and then we are seeing these variations. And then, of course, it makes complete sense that you bring this, adapt this to CBRS to roll out even more innovative use cases that cater for emerging applications. And then you have shared about the ecosystem and the players who will actually benefit from this. So yes, very insightful discussion. So thank you for sharing so much on this topic and what's ahead in this space. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to meeting everyone in Barcelona next week.
Oh, great. And a note to our listeners, everyone tuning in today, you can learn more about Solona at www.solona.io. Thank you, and see you again in our next video. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.